What's going on, everybody out there listening? If you are here on Radio DePaul, listening to this channel, this station, college radio at its finest, then you are listening to me, Joe Sumo, and you are inside the cage where we talk mixed martial arts for the next hour. And today we got a big show ahead of you. We're going to be talking UFC 166, possibly the greatest fight card ever to happen in the UFC, as well as covering what's going on in mixed martial arts news. We'll preview UFC's fight night over in the UK, headlined by Lyoto Machida versus Mark Munoz. I've got my co-host LayzieTheSavage, and we'll also be getting in here special guest Gilbert El Nino Melendez, who probably just put on the fight of the year last Saturday. All that's happening right now, today, because you have stepped inside the cage. Yes, everybody, welcome inside the cage, my mixed martial arts show where I like to talk, rant, and rave about the greatest sport in the world. And today, like usual, I have my buddy and just familiar face here, or at least familiar voice here on the show, LayzieTheSavage from MiddleEasy.com and Fight Hub TV. Lazy, what's going on, brother?
Sav life, just living it and loving it, baby. You know what's up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, I feel like we should just get right into it. Was this Saturday the greatest fight card you ever seen in the UFC?
In the UFC, possibly. I thought it was awesome from top to bottom. You know, this is one of the only UFC cards I didn't take a pre-fight nap or in the middle of nap. I don't know, whatever you call it. But 13 fights is a lot, you know. That's like 5 hours total of fights, watching fights in the middle of the day. I pass out usually during the prelims, and I'll wake up for like the main card usually when I'm at home. But I'll tell you what, I turned on the very first fight of this card, and from top to bottom, man, it was action packed, and everybody brought their A game that night. I don't know, man. I heard it was like a full moon and like some sort of lunar eclipse, so that might explain some things. And because, dude, not only that, man, but like it was just a great night of fights. I hate to jump off topic, but I tuned over to Mike Alvarado versus Ruslan Provodnikov boxing, and it was amazing as well. So it was just a great night overall for fights. I don't know what it was, but something in the air, man.
Yes, certainly something was going on last Saturday night, because you are correct. I didn't get a chance to watch the boxing match, but I did get a chance to watch this UFC 166 fight card. And from beginning to end, with barely a few hiccups in between, I mean, this card was just straight out entertaining. From Tony Ferguson in the beginning, just going lights out, balls to the wall in his fight, all the way to the end where Cain Velasquez retains his title against Junior Dos Santos. I mean, this card just did not let me down. And every time I got to a fight where I was like, oh, this could be a dud, you know, I was completely wrong. And just, I guess I can't be surprised, but I was certainly caught off guard by how awesome this card was. I don't know if I could say it was the greatest card ever. I mean, I really have to go back in my memory bank and think about other fight cards I've watched. But certainly in recent memory, this is the most fun I've had watching a mixed martial arts event.
Yeah, it was a good time. I actually, as a matter of fact, the reason I tuned over to the Ruslan Provodnikov Mike Alvarado fight, it was going on during the time that the Daniel Cormier Roy Nelson fight was going on. So I had both fights up at once, but I turned down the volume on the Roy Nelson Daniel Cormier fight, so the crowd was going crazy in the boxing fight. It made it feel like both fights were equally as entertaining. But I heard that Roy and DC didn't put on that great of a show, and you can't blame me for my eyes being on the Alvarado Provodnikov fight because Provodnikov fight, because that was amazing.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I'm glad you said that, because certainly from a Roy Nelson standpoint, I wouldn't say that he put on the greatest performance, but Daniel Cormier, I think once again is proving that he has a full arsenal of moves, and he can make a guy as spectacular as Roy Nelson look pedestrian in a fight. Daniel Cormier was able to really push the pace the whole time, land nasty combinations, and when it was a moment where Roy Nelson wanted to get a breather, Daniel would just press him up against the cage, pound on him more, grind on him more. And I know Roy Nelson, after the fight, said that something along the lines to Dana White that Daniel never engaged him, which is insane. But I think this once again shows how good Daniel Cormier is and how much of a threat he is at heavyweight or at light heavyweight if for once he actually moves down to 205.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was more watching the boxing match, but when I was tuning over, I was seeing that Roy was having some trouble. But, what troubles me is what he was saying before the fight, that this was his worst training camp ever. And I understand what that's like, man. I've seen these fighters have shit training camps. No one will excuse. Am I allowed to cuss? I'm sorry. I'll try not to. But I understand, like, for them, to have terrible training camps and things like that. I've seen it happen. This isn't boxing where they're all making $100,000 to fight and they can afford to, fly out sparring partners and things like that. Man, Nick's fight for George St. Pierre, his training camp was terrible, man. And it's because no one came out to train. It just wasn't. There wasn't enough fighters in town that were helping him prepare like there should have been, like George St. Pierre has, and that kind of thing, So when Roy said that, it kind of worried me, especially against a guy like Daniel Cormier, who has the best training partner in the UFC as far as he's concerned, in Cain Velasquez. Not to mention, any other body that's over there, AKA, it's just a gym packed full of tough guys that want to work and put in the work, and I can respect that, and that's the same way it is in Northern California with Nick and Nate, but I don't know how it is with Roy,
Yeah, I don't know enough about his training camp leading up to the fight. I saw somebody posted on Twitter that he says it was the worst training camp for Roy Nelson because they closed the Burger King next to his facility. And I kind of chuckled at that. But in all honesty, I don't know what's
going on. That fool's lost a bunch of weight, and in my opinion, I think that was the worst thing for him. I think he was good as a big, fat heavyweight. I think he used his body to his advantage. All that extra weight, he would apply that pressure on somebody, and it wears him down, man. I never saw Roy have a gas tank issue, to be honest. Like, I never saw, even when he took that beating from Arlovsky, or when he was in that early war in his career with Ben Rothwell back in the IFL, like, he was at his fattest right there, and, he wasn't gassing during that fight,
Okay, but you say that. He has gassed his last two fights. Are we assuming that with him cutting this weight down that he's losing cardio?
Would that be weird to say? I don't know, man. I don't know, because a guy is that big. How good do you expect him to get into shape? I mean, like, what, you trying to have him fight at middleweight? Because it is possible. The dude could lose enough weight to get all the way down to middleweight if he really wanted to. But dude, I think that guy was a great heavyweight, and I think that he used his weight to his advantage. And I don't know, man. I don't like the slim country.
Slim country. I enjoy that. That was a good nickname. I like that. No, you're right. Things have looked different in his past couple of fights. He did mention that the training camp was his worst. I also know that he probably didn't train as hard as he could have for the Stiopich fight. So maybe it's something going on in his camp, but he's certainly looking a little more lethargic the last few fights. And I don't know really what's going on, but I'd like to see him get back to the Roy Nelson we all know and love. It could be that, or he could just be fighting better competition that maybe have game planned for him a little bit more now that there's more footage out there of him in the UFC. Who knows? I mean, Daniel Cormier, regardless of what Roy Nelson's cardio is like, is a true ultimate fighter, and Daniel Cormier was the odds-on favorite to win that fight. So I don't know, but let's talk about this card. Let's take away from that fight for a second, and let's start off with some of these prelims. Mainly, I want to get right into the women fighting. Once again, awesome fight, but this time kind of unexpected as Jessica Ai comes in here and gets the victory against what people were giving the favorite to, Sarah Kaufman. Well-known, very talented fighter who's been around for a while, losing to this young up-and-coming woman who is 9-1 leading into the fight. What'd you get from that fight between the two girls?
Man, when Jessica Ai came out and she started popping that jab out, her hand speed was tripping me out. We don't see too many ladies with technical good hand speed like that, and I was thoroughly impressed because I knew Sarah Kaufman's tough and that she was going to bring it. I knew a little. I had heard a little bit about her, Jessica Ai, and her experience, but I wasn't ready for that. I didn't think she won the fight, though. I thought it was very close. I wasn't mad that she won the fight. Cause I was impressed with her performance, but I thought Sarah did enough to get the victory. And the thing I took out of the fight most is that the UFC needs a 125-pound women's division. There's enough talent out there, and I would watch Jessica Ai and Leslie Smith fight 7 times a week, 8 times a week, twice on Sunday. I swear. But there's enough talent out there, and that's what I took out of that fight. But I thought Sarah Kaufman should have got the nod. But like I said, I wasn't upset. I like Jessica Ai. I think she's very talented, but let's be honest, she's a 125-pound fighter fighting in the 35-pound division because the opportunity knocked and she answered. So
yeah,
props to her. I love when people step up and do that kind of stuff. And regardless of what happened, I think both ladies came out with more fans because of the outcome. So.
Yeah, this seems to be a common occurrence with Sarah Kaufman. She manages to always get herself in these just awesome battles where she's looking just the worse for wear every time, but you're always entertained. And I agree with you to the sense that I can't be mad if the fight went either way. I will say that looking at the stats, Sarah Kaufman, landed more shots and at a higher percentage. But as I watched the fight in real time, I just felt like Jessica was always kind of getting the edge in the striking. Like it seemed to me like she was either landing first or countering better. She was always kind of hitting at the right time, I guess I would have to say. So I'm definitely not upset that she gets the victory. I think it was a well-fought battle between both girls.
Well, before the fight of the century took place, I had that fight being the most entertaining and back-and-forth fight and the best candidate for fight of the night, before Gilbert Melendez and Diego Sanchez stepped in the cage. But I was thoroughly impressed with the girls. But like I said, Sarah Kaufman, I don't think this loss hurts her too much. She's not going anywhere. The UFC realizes that she's a scrapper and she's going to come out and put on entertaining shows. Sarah's not ready for another title shot anyway, so this loss I don't think is going to hurt her or her career too much at this point. She's still young in the game too, so she'll bounce back, and I wouldn't be surprised if she got the nod in her next fight.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to see what's next for Jessica Ai.
Certainly, I agree.
If I were her, I would campaign for 125-pound division and offer to be the, try and be the Ronda Rousey of the 125. Why not campaign for it? You're in now. You got the W. You got the W over a chick that fought for the 35-pound title. And, shoot, you got the chips in your pocket now, right? Am I wrong?
She certainly is making a case for it. She put on a good show. She's unfortunately, this has to be a case, but she's also an attractive woman, and in women's mixed martial arts, sex appeal does sell. And so she's attractive. She fights well. She's entertaining. And you're right. There is enough talent at this point in the women's MMA world where you could now reel off a 125-pound division and have her step up to maybe have a battle against, I don't know who you would throw up against her, but for a potential title fight and get your title holder going at the 125-pound division.
Well, what happens is as soon as the weight class opens up, they're going to swallow Invicta.
Certainly.
Whether Janet or Shannon Knapp wants to admit it, Dana will offer a price that no one can refuse. And props to Shannon and Janet for, those two are personally responsible for, getting this ball rolling with women's MMA. Aside from Ronda Rousey, of course, and Gina Carano, and but I'm talking about from behind the curtains. These two women have done tremendous amounts for women's mixed martial arts, and they deserve the credit. But like I said, once the divisions open up in the UFC, Dana's going to break out the paycheck, and he's going to sign over a large amount to make them happy, and they'll absorb all that talent because there's a lot of talent over there.
Certainly.
I wouldn't even doubt if they hire on Janet and Shannon to become part of the women's MMA development or some sort of job like that inside the company. I think that would be a great idea as well.
You could definitely see something like that happening in the case that the 125-pound division happens in the UFC. Invicta would definitely have to keep a lookout on what the UFC is doing. Until that point, it's really all hearsay, but I like where you're going with it. But let's not diverge too much, and I want to get back to this fight card. UFC 166 was filled with just insane fights. One of them that ended, or one of the few that ended early in the first round, still on the prelims card, was one that I called myself on the show last week against you, and that was Hector Lombard versus Nate Marquardt. First round, KO / TKO. And Hector Lombard, though looking kind of sucked up at 170, did look good. Is this just a case of Nate Marquardt kind of being over the hill? Or is this a case of the right weight class for Hector Lombard?
Yeah, because Hector Lombard has no track record of coming out and starching fools in the first round. Are you kidding me? Lombard's a savage, dude. That fool is just a beast, and he came out and went beast mode on Nate Marquardt. I picked Lombard before that fight, right?
I think we both did. Yes, we both did. I think we might even both have picked him in the first round for the KO.
Sorry, I can barely remember what I did yesterday, but yeah, exactly. And that doesn't surprise me because he has to come out in beast mode, and that's what he does. So, going back, I still think he won the Bosch fight. I still think that he could have done damage at 185, but 170, yeah, man, if he can make the weight, he's a savage. Robbie Lawler versus Hector Lombard would be sweet.
That's a good call. I hope Dana White's listening. I like that fight. I would definitely be interested in watching two guys that know how to throw haymakers at 170 bang it out. It wouldn't last long, but it certainly would be entertaining.
Let the paramedics sort them out, but I'm telling you, those two will rip each other apart.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get to the main card now. And first of all, John Dodson. Once again, man, proving he's got power for a little guy. He's quick, he's feisty, he takes a shot, and he knows how to throw him himself. He gets another victory under his belt by KO, this time against Daryl Montague. Did you expect anything less?
Well, I had heard a lot about Daryl Montague going into this fight just because of his fights with Ian McCall at Itachi Palace. And, essentially I think Ian beat Daryl Montague to get into the UFC. So I knew the kid was tough, and I heard the fight was tough. So, but Dodson's a little savage, man. And he Ric Flaired Daryl Montague, man. I sure will. All I could think about was Ric Flair getting chopped in the corner and then walking all the way into the octagon and then face planting. Best bump ever, dude. But I still don't even think he was out. I think he could have recovered in the fight, but it was a clean shot, and he did get popped a few times early in the fight too.
He was kind of punch drunk before that knockout. There was a bunch of good shots landed.
Yeah, I didn't feel like he was much of a threat. Otherwise, the ref, I think, would have let it go on because I don't want to skip. I don't want to skip ahead. But Junior was out on his feet pretty much, but he was still punching back. And when Junior punches, it's not like he's pushing punches. That fool swings. I mean, it just reminds me of like a shotgun, man. Pow, pow, pow. I mean, it's just ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that from Montague, so I didn't disagree with stoppage, but I didn't think he was out completely. What I did remember most about that fight, aside from the knockout, was Montague screaming afterwards and just throwing a big temper tantrum. And I always get a kick out of that. Like, it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, I understand you're upset. I mean, this is fighting. You trained for months on end to get into this fight, but it was a good decision, and I would hope that after he watches the fight over again and watches himself face plant, you would realize that maybe this isn't the right call for me to be arguing.
Yeah. I'd like to see what he's got to prove. It's tough, your first fight in the UFC against John Dodson. Like, come on, man. Like, talk about throwing the kid to the wolves. But
certainly.
He signed the contract. He took the fight. But,
Let's talk about another first-round knockout. And this time, I'm going ahead. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to be a man about this. I will admit it. I will eat my words, and I will say it on air. You are right, Lazy. I am wrong.
That is right.
Gabriel Gonzaga is a man, all right? He is a man's man. I should have never questioned it when he came out there with that 80s porn star mustache. I just should have realized that he's more man than I thought he was, and I was an idiot. Sean Jordan, for who he is a good fighter. Not bad. He has heavy hands, but Gabriel Gonzaga is a man's man. And I will no longer deny that. His chin is completely fine. He is a beast. He needs to keep the mustache. I am a fan. I am now 100% on the Gabriel Gonzaga bandwagon.
Yeah, well, I see. That's exactly what I expected to happen, to be honest. I know Sean the Savage. No pun intended, but he's a tough kid. But I knew that Gonzaga's skill and experience was going to pay off, and I expected him to get him out of there early, to be honest. So you were wrong, I was right, and suspect chin. Poor Gabe.
Yeah.
I hope he earned respect, but I am sure he did. What sucks is that guys like me and you are talking about Gabe Gonzaga right now and his knockout, but dude, the whole card was so awesome that people get, lost in all the awesomeness that happened. They forget about Gabe's win. So I don't know what I'd like to see from him next, but he definitely needs to be up there. See, the thing is I don't think Gabe beats any of the top 5 heavyweights or even has a legitimate shot, and that's what sucks for him.
I think you're right to an extent. There's certain guys I would still like to see him against, a la of Roy Nelson, maybe Mark Hunt. I think would be good fights for him at this point. Guys that are kind of teetering at the backside of the top 10 of the heavyweight division, maybe even Frank Mir.
Yeah, those are all fights that possibly make sense. I don't know about the Mir fight, but what was the first one you said? Not Roy Nelson, but
Mark Hunt.
yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Mark Hunt. Him and Mark Hunt in there.
I think they all make sense. They're all guys just kind of in that mesh. They're not quite top 5 material right now, and they're all trying to work their way back up into the ranks of the division. That would be a good place to put him. But with that being said, he has won 5 out of his last 6 fights, and there are notable victories on there, with his only loss coming to Travis Brown, who just proved, a month ago that he's a force to be reckoned with at heavyweight. So Gabe is the truth. I'll give him that. I am a fan now and totally into it. He needs to keep the mustache, though, because he's rocking it. He's rocking it real hard. I almost feel like I should skip over this fight just because it's the greatest fight I've seen in quite a time, but I just want to jump into it right now because it deserves a little bit of a segment. There's plenty to be said about it, but let's just say it. Diego Sanchez versus Gilbert Melendez. Was that the best fight in the UFC?
It's up there, man. It's definitely up there with Shogun versus Hendo. And you know what's bothering me a little bit, and I got to get this off my chest, is everybody's saying Diego, Diego, Diego. And if Gilbert Melendez didn't choose to engage that type of battle, that fight would have been Gilbert Melendez 30-27, no problem. I got to be honest, the first round, I've seen hot knives have more difficult going through butter than Gilbert had dismantling Diego in the first round. He was just picking him apart. Diego really had no answer for him. And at the last 10 seconds, Gilbert said, all right, let's turn it on, because Gilbert's known for that, man. A lot of people don't expect that, but he doesn't have to do that. Diego's losing that fight. Of course he has to go berserk and go crazy because nothing else is working for him. So Gilbert kind of, he just bit down the mouthpiece and went to war and at the last 10 seconds, and he won the first round handedly. And, in the second round, a lot of, there would have been some doctors that would have stopped that fight. That cut was pretty bad.
The cut was disgusting.
I'll tell you what, man. If they would have got a close-up of it in between like rounds 2 and 3, and somebody would have walked in the room and just saw the close-up, and the doctor's hands were next to it, it would have looked like somebody was delivering a baby. Okay, it was it was that big and that disgusting, and I'll tell you what.
It was pretty bad.
Diego for fighting through it. He definitely proved he has a warrior spirit. Definitely didn't have the skill that Melendez had in there that night, I don't think, and not even close. But he did get that shot in the third round to drop Melendez, and I know Gilbert was upset about that because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to put himself in that position, but he did it for the fans. I was really disappointed with some of the fans in the Houston arena that night that were booing Gilbert, and I understand you want to cheer for Diego. Diego's your guy, whatever. Yeah, cool. But dude, there's got to be a mutual respect when the other guy comes in there for a dogfight as well. Especially when you're in the position where you don't have to and you do it anyway.
I agree.
I think Gilbert won a ton of fans, and I think that this fight benefited him in the best possible way, in the way it was meant to benefit him. They put him up in the against Diego Sanchez for a reason, because look at the crowd. He's a crowd favorite. And if you can't beat him, join him, right? So I'm sure a lot of Diego fans are going to cheer for Gilbert Melendez next time Gilbert fights. Am I wrong?
No, not at all.
I think that I see where the matchmaking was coming from. Gilbert is now on a universal platform because everybody's still talking about that fight. So he got the name recognition that he needed, and now they can, propel him for another title run and a shot against Pettis, because I'd be willing to bet he's next in line.
Yeah. Here's my thoughts on this fight. A few things. One, nobody's ever questioned Diego Sanchez's heart. And certainly after a fight like last Saturday's, if you did have any doubt, you don't anymore. The man is just full force, threat, beast, nasty monster when he comes inside the cage. I don't know why he ever changed his name to The Dream, because every time he goes in there, it looks like a nightmare. He's the real deal. I don't think he'll ever be a top caliber fighter, like number 1 or number 2 ranked in his weight class, but he'll always be that guy that comes out there and bangs out a victory or a loss with whoever he's in the cage against. With that being said, Gilbert Melendez was just technically and just overall superior in every aspect. I've watched that fight 4 times now since the actual Saturday night of it. And every time they got into those crazy flurry exchanges outside of the ending of the 3rd round, Gilbert always won them. If you watch that first round, that exchange where they're throwing the flurry with 10 seconds left in the round, Diego doesn't even land a punch. He's just throwing at air, while Gilbert lands 3 or 4 in a row, including the 4th one that actually knocks him down. And this is the case going into the 2nd round as well, and even most of the 3rd round until the uppercut gets landed by Diego. What I'm trying to get at is that Gilbert, even though this was one of the most entertaining fights I've ever seen, Gilbert was winning that fight, regardless of what you think. And outside of that uppercut, there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to get the victory. That uppercut was the only reason you could possibly give a round to Diego Sanchez. Outside of that,
he was losing that round up until that point.
That's what I'm saying.
Losing it heavily. And but so if anything, you give that round a draw, because he did knock him down. That's a clean knockdown. That's as clean as it gets.
Certainly.
And but don't forget that Gilbert dropped
Diego in the 1st round.
Yeah. So you could still give the fight 30-27, because you could possibly give the 1st round a 10-8 to Gilbert Melendez. So it was a dominant fight by Gilbert up until that uppercut. And then you can tell, look at the damage on Gilbert's face. It's practically non-existent. And
meanwhile, Diego Sanchez's face looks like it went through a meat grinder.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. He got cut up pretty bad.
It was pretty nasty.
Yeah. I just got a text from Gilbert. He's going to be calling in about 5 minutes, so we should look forward to talking to him. I was thoroughly impressed with him, man. But it's for a guy to fight like that, when you don't have to fight like that, earns every penny of that extra $60,000 fight bonus. When a fight like that happens and you still have people talking about it, there's some backroom bonuses being given that we don't know about.
Oh, certainly. They might have gotten the $60,000 bonus, which I also heard was, up to $60,000 by who was in the back? I forgot. Somebody was back there campaigning for the fighters to get bigger bonuses, and that's why it went up to 60, because I believe it's supposed to be 50,000 or 30 now. Something along those lines. Somebody campaigned for that, but definitely he deserved that. But you're also right. That Dana White and the Fertitta brothers and Silva were like, these guys are going to get broken off a little bit, something extra, because tonight was a night to remember. And you really have to give that to Gilbert Melendez and Diego Sanchez as well. But Gilbert Melendez for, like you said, engaging in what really was a fight that he didn't even have to engage in. He could have stand on the outside and picked Diego Sanchez apart. Diego was fighting flat-footed the whole fight, and Gilbert Melendez has really good rhythm with his strike and a lot of bouncing and head movement. He could have picked him apart, but he was like, you know what? I'm going to come out here, throw caution to the wind, and bang it out with this dude that I know is dangerous. And in doing so, really put on what was, in my book, one of the top 3 fights I've ever seen in the UFC. I mean, it's right up there with Shogun and Hendo. And I want to say Stephan Bonner and Griffin. it's up there. I'll always remember it. I'm a fan of both fighters anyways, but now, they solidify themselves in, I think, the history of the UFC with one of the best fights ever. And now that puts, I think, Gilbert in a really interesting position. You could say he's next in line for a title, but they want to give Benson Henderson another shot as soon as possible. Does this now make a rematch between these two inevitable?
No, I think Pettis is the matchup to make. I think there's other fights for Benson Henderson. No, Pettis is the matchup to make.
You're saying that assuming that Pettis wins this fight against Josh Thompson.
Yeah, well, regardless, if Thompson wins, they're going to do Gilbert Melendez Thompson 4. There's no doubt about it.
Well, under the UFC banner and the Zuffa banner, it would be considered Josh Thompson, Gilbert Melendez 1, because they almost never bring up fights outside of their promotion as build-up to...
Well, they own Strikeforce now, buddy, and they own all that footage, so they'll be more than happy to use it, and they'll be more than happy to build history, background, and drama into this fight. And trust me, either way, Gilbert Melendez makes sense for this matchup. He's the number-ranked 2 guy. TJ Grant is might get screwed.
TJ Grant is in limbo. I don't see him getting a title shot.
Why not TJ Grant versus Ben Henderson? But the fans want to see Gilbert Melendez in there, especially after that fight. That catapults him to the top, and to be honest, I'm hoping Josh Thompson pulls off the upset. To be honest, I think that'd be awesome. I think that'd be great for the sport, great for the division. And then that belt is just going to bounce around from there, I think.
I certainly have to agree on the sense that it's hard to see somebody holding on to that belt for an extended period of time in that division. But I do think that there's 4 guys at the top of that division, and it can kind of be mixed and matched anyway. And that's really Anthony Pettis, the champion, Josh Thompson, Ben Henderson, and Gilbert Melendez. And since Josh Thompson and Anthony Pettis are set up to fight for the belt, what wouldn't be a perfect matchup then between the controversial decision rematch between Ben Henderson and Gilbert Melendez?
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, it wasn't that controversial to me. I thought Gilbert Melendez won that fight, and it wasn't one of those fights where you're like, oh, I got to go back and watch that fight again. You walked away from that fight knowing that, I think Gilbert Melendez won that fight. A lot of people already call him the uncrowned champion. I really don't see a need for the rematch at this point, or I don't see a demand for it either. So, in my opinion, no. Let Grant and Henderson fight. Let Gil fight. The winner of Pettis versus Thompson, I just see it that way. And let's see what happens with Gray Maynard versus Nate Diaz, and see where that puts one of those guys. It's a big circle for these guys. A beats C but loses to B, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Whatever they do with Gilbert, he's certainly solidified himself as the number 2 contender. Whether they give him the shot, or the number 1 contender, I should say. Whether they give him the shot, we'll see. All right, everybody, we're back inside the cage. Your host, Joe Sumo. We had to take a quick break. I'm here now with my co-host, LayzieTheSavage, and our special guest, Gilbert El Nino Melendez. What's going on, Gilbert?
What's up, boys? Just chilling out, man. Just on this high from winning. I'm pretty pumped, feeling proud right now.
I am still coming down from it. You couldn't take a pill, smoke a joint, drink a beer. Nothing would make you feel like the way you made millions of people feel watching that fight on Saturday night. That was insane, man.
There's no better high than sitting in that cage and being victorious, and that one was one of the best highs I felt ever.
You know what? You mentioned that this isn't, your first fighting like this, but for a lot of UFC fans, this is their first time getting a chance to see you get into a brawl like this. I mean, is it kind of frustrating for you for people to not really see that side of you until you've stepped inside the UFC cage, knowing that you've had all these battles in Strikeforce?
I mean, maybe in the past it was, but at this point now that everyone's seen it, nah, not at all. But I just didn't know how good my fight was. Like, after it was all over, Dana was like, holy shit, everyone was all jazzed and, like, on their feet. And, it just didn't feel like, I was in the fight of the year. It felt like another Gilbert Melendez fight, you know what I mean? But no, I'm not bitter at all. But I'm just like, when people were telling me, like, wow, I've never seen, I'm like, I encourage you to Google me, and watch my first fight with Kawajiri, watch my fight with Obia, watch my fight with Kanan Kaku, watch my fight with Thompson #2, all my fights. My second fight with Kawajiri, like, that's my style, man, and I've been here for a while, and and people like you guys have seen it and always give me credit, and that's it, man. I'm happy, dude. I'm happy about it all. It doesn't frustrate me. I'm just glad I finally arrived and I'm finally getting it, and it just legitimizes me more in the sport, and I'm just really happy about that.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, you've always been up there, being a title holder in Strikeforce and coming over to the UFC and fighting for the title right away. And then after losing a controversial decision to Ben Henderson, it was kind of like, what do we do with Gilbert now? And then you come out here and you really do put on one of the best performances in the UFC. I mean, easily for me, it's in my top 3 favorite fights I've ever seen in the UFC. It's pretty much a statement fight to put you right back in the mix of things. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, most definitely, man. I feel like I'm the uncrowned champion. After that performance, it was like, what's next for Pettis or Thompson after this fight, and I think we all know what's next. It's me coming back for what's rightfully mine in the title, and being one of the top 3 fights ever is great. I hope by the time I'm done with my career, you go to, I make the top 5 times. I want to be number 1, Gilbert Melendez versus Pettis. Number 2, best of all time, Gilbert versus whoever. Number 5 would be, Gilbert versus Diego, but I'd love to be him. Dan Henderson's that guy. Shogun's that guy. Shogun with Brandon Vera. Shogun with Dan Henderson. I mean, he has like 2 of the best fights ever just because of, he's a badass like that. I want to be like, one of those guys who has not only one memorable fight but tons of them. I want to be that guy. I have a lot of fight in me.
Wait, Gil, when I talked to you before this fight, I had asked you if you felt like this was a bigger risk than reward. Do you feel like this fight paid off as big as it possibly could have for you as to the fans?
Heck yeah, man! I felt like I was gambling in Vegas, and I doubled down, man, and I hit blackjack. It's just exactly how I felt. There was a lot of going into this fight, a lot of background stuff. A lot of people don't know business-wise. There was a lot of pressure. My wife even brought it up to me, like, hey, Gil, there's a lot of things on stake right now, and I just want to let you know I love you no matter what. It made me laugh a little bit, but there was a lot at stake here, and we gambled, and a lot of people gambled on this both ways, and and I hit blackjack.
Well, that's what we were talking about, that you taking the gamble when you really, in a lot of people's eyes, a lot of fans were saying you didn't need to, that you were winning the first and second round handedly, and that there was no real reason for you to get into these wild exchanges other than to please the fans. I mean, is that what was going through your mind at the time? Was I just want to please the fans, or is that just the El Nino that's going to fight every single time and we could expect that every time? I mean, what was going through your head?
To be honest, man, I mean, that's just what you're going to expect from me, if you're going to stand with me right there. And, I felt like I was in a controllable place. I felt like I was landing the better punches and things were going my way. And I felt like it was an intelligent fight. I like to bang it out. I'm just a warrior like that as well. And, I've always fought for myself, to test myself, to challenge myself for dollars back in the day. Thank God it's become my career. And I thank God I have great fans and supporters, but, that come along the way. But, I never initially did this for money, or for anything besides this, to test myself and test my warrior spirit out there. And, some people may think I lose a year of my life fighting like that, but to me, I gain a year of my life. I really feel like that shit's good for my soul, so, that's just how I do it, I guess, man. And I've done it for a long time, and I'm going to continue to do it like that. And, and more so now ever that, I just feel more legitimized in the sport. So that's just how I'm going to keep bringing it for everybody.
Talking about you being legitimized, now that you're where you're at in the mix of things, that you have Thompson fighting Pettis, and that's coming up. and you kind of have Benson Henderson sitting there in limbo, would you be willing to fight him in a rematch to see who gets the shot at the title? Or do you feel that you've kind of already leapfrogged over him and it's almost your right to get this shot at the title, showing what you have to offer and also losing controversially to Benson Henderson in your initial fight against him?
Yeah, I feel like I won that fight with Benson, and it's not like a chip on my shoulder. The first time Josh Thompson beat me, he kind of beat me, and I feel like I didn't perform to the best. I feel like he took it to me, and I'm comfortable that I lost the scorecards, but I still truly believe I won the fight, and I think you guys and 75 to 85% of all my peers really believe I won that fight. So it's not like anything that's on my mind, that I need to redeem that. My goal is to get that title, and my goal is to fight someone who wants to stand toe to toe and really bang it out and fight me. And I'm interested in those kind of fights. You know what I mean? I'm interested in those kind of fights. But if Benson had the title, I would be more than happy to. And if our paths cross again, I wouldn't say no to that. I think he's still a really good warrior. I respect him a lot, but again, I'm looking for someone. I'm looking for that belt, and I'm looking for someone who's going to try to knock me out.
Who do you got in Pettis versus Thompson, and who are you going to be cheering for during that fight?
I got Pettis like a 2-1 favorite. Believe it or not, I'll be cheering for the Cali boy. Thompson, again, I haven't, as much as he's a rival, it's an intimate thing. I'd like to see him go out with that title, considering he fought Eve Edwards for the, he lost that fight before they got rid of the 155-pound division, and, but I do think Thompson has the potential to, shock the world and upset Pettis. I think he has some pretty good striking. He has a good chin. I think he maybe could duke it out with Pettis, and, I think he might have the better techniques in wrestling and grappling. But, Pettis is just a freak of nature and great athleticism and is evolving, rapidly. And, and it's tough to call. But I'm definitely going to maybe cheer for Thompson. I think at this point I'm cheering for Thompson, and but I really don't care at the end of the day. But I also have Pettis as a favorite.
Let's say that Josh Thompson does win this fight. And you get a chance to fight him for the belt. Outside of it being a title shot, I mean, is it going to be harder for you to kind of get up to fight him a fourth time, knowing that you've already gone to war with him 3 times?
Heck no. In fact, it's pretty dang ironic that, after I beat him that last time, I didn't want to fight him, or, I'm done with that chapter and close the book, and he wanted to fight that. And if he wins, the tables are going to be turned, dude, and it's going to be in my favor. I'm going to want that title. I'm going to want that fight. And he's going to be like, hell no, I probably don't want that fight at all. And I know I got what it takes to beat him, and I know the best in shape, Reddy Gilbert, can dominate him. And if that happens, I think it'll play on my advantage. But it would be pretty dang ironic, and I'd sit back and just laugh. I couldn't help but laugh at the situation. Sometimes I think about it now, and we just laugh already. But it'd be an honor, man. It would be an honor again, and it'd be really great for both of us. We've done a lot in this sport, and if that somehow happened, it'd show a lot for both of us, and and a lot for people who fought outside the organization of the UFC for many years.
Gilbert, if Thompson is victorious, would a potential fight between you and him, would it feel right to have it anywhere else other than the HP Pavilion?
Heck no, man. HP Pavilion, I mean, it has to be in Cali. It has to be in Cali. But, I never fought in Vegas, too. I love to fight in Vegas, man. It's incredible. I've fought a crazy career, and when I look back, people just are baffled that I haven't fought in Vegas. So I think Vegas would bring out everyone in HP. Vegas would bring everyone out from TJ, Southern Cali, and but HP just seems like the right place to do it, too, as well.
I want to jump off of you for 1 second. Your buddy and training partner a couple weeks ago fought in Brazil against Damian Maia in the headliner of the UFC Fight Night card. Looked great in doing so. Dominates really what was considered the best grappler at the 170-pound weight class. Do you feel like your buddy Jake Shields not only solidified himself in the top 3 rankings, but maybe even as the best grappler outside of GSP in that division?
Oh, heck yeah, man. I know. I think he is the best grappler in MMA. For MMA grappling, he is the best grappler. There's no question in my mind. I think that he can out-grapple GSP. In fact, when he fought GSP didn't grapple hit him all. He stuck and moved. So, I still think he is the better grappler even than GSP, though GSP has proven to be the greatest MMA fighter in the division. But I still believe that, Jake is the best grappler. I've always said it. His top game is phenomenal. And, yeah, man, that's Sexy Yama he beat. That's Ed Herman he beat. That's Tyron Woodley he beat. And that's Damian Maia he beat. That's 4 huge wins in a row. You know what I mean? And, and none of those, I think all those were, like, strong wins and good showings. And after this 5-round battle, it's like heads up 170 weight class. He's coming. And there are people who are thinking twice about trying to fight Jake, dude. People are thinking twice about that. And Jake's a stud. And, and it's actually, like, reassuring for me, that guy's my training partner. And him coming with the win from Damian Maia, gave me the juice to do better in my fight as well. So the team's on a high, and I think, yes, Jake is the best grappler in that division, the best probably grappler in MMA right now, maybe besides someone like Jacare. But other than that, yeah, man, I'm really proud of my boy, my big brother. He's doing great.
And what would you like to see next for him, you think?
For Jake?
Yeah.
I like to see him fight Rory McDonald. I know he's set up for Rory McDonald versus Robbie Lawler, which is a tough matchup. Maybe the winner between that and then the winner between Carlos Condit and Matt Brown. One of those guys is going to get the title shot if they win, and the other winner is going to have to fight Jake, I think. And I think that only makes sense. And I think Jake is 1 win away from a title shot.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, man. I was thoroughly impressed with his victory over Damian Maia. That was very impressive. He just out-grappled the favorite to grapple him. So, and yeah, I agree, man. GSP wanted nothing to do with Jake's grappling, and I wouldn't doubt that Jake has the best grappling in the division, if not both divisions, 185 and 170.
Agreed, man. And, yeah, my team's on fire, and I'm looking forward to Nate on November 30th against Gray Maynard.
Where do you think that puts him with the win over Gray? You guys have always been like the two-headed monster of the lightweight division. With a win over Gray, that puts him right back in the mix. But, he already fought Benson. He hasn't fought TJ Grant. And who else is there out there for him other than guys like Pettis and Benson over again?
Yeah, man, I think, and I'm glad that, Nate's getting a top 5 guy at 155. I think Gray's still a top 5 guy there, a very tough opponent. If he gets by him, the pecking order just gets better. Him and I being the top 4 guys, and, and maybe, Pettis being the other guy, and, maybe him getting a rematch with Thompson. I think him fighting Pettis as well, dude, he's a bad matchup for Pettis. The other guy in the division that no one really gives a lot of credit, he's just an up-and-comer, is that Khabib kid. I think he's a beast, and he's a guy coming up as well. So, I mean, there's no real pecking order, man. I mean, if you had a 16-man bracket, or we'll just say an 8-man bracket, you don't know who would end up in the finals. The number 7 seed may be fighting the number 3 seed in the finals of the tournament, So this lightweight division needs a pecking order right now, and I think a big win with Nate would put him back on top of that pecking order with I, and we'll see what's next after that. But a lot of things need to play out in the division.
Yeah, you going to take some time off, or what are you going to do? How are you going to celebrate this victory?
I'm chilling, bro. Having a little party at the gym this Wednesday. We're starting quick, and but I want to stay healthy. Someone that you watch Mayweather on TV. That guy doesn't drink at all. I'm trying to get inspired here. I'm trying to live healthy. It doesn't mean I'm not going to have a few drinks, but I want to prolong my career. I want to stay healthy. I want to evolve. I'm really pumped up and motivated right now. So, I'm going to spend some holidays with my family, but I'm just going to stay ready and try to improve. I've arrived. I'm ready to do this.
Well, you know
What's going on with the Raiders, man? Before I let you go, I just got to give you some heat. What's going on, man?
Some heat? What's going on with what?
Your Raiders. What's going on this season? Tell us how they're going to do. How they're going to finish it out.
What's going on? We're doing great, bro. We're doing good. We're considering, no one thought we were going to win a game. We've already won 2. We had a great game against the undefeated Chiefs. Just a couple offsides because of the loud noise, and Pryor's doing great. I think the defense is looking great. I think Woodson in the back is an awesome dude. I think they underestimated the D. I'm pretty proud of the Raiders right now. And what's up?
Are you going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, why not, bro? I'm going to go watch the play the Steelers. Why can't it happen? You know, I mean, it's tough when you have the Broncos in the division to make the playoffs. You know what I mean? You got Peyton Manning over there right now. It makes it real tough. You know, but you know, I'm rooting for him, dude. And you know, before I die, I know we're winning a Super Bowl.
I like it. High aspirations. I enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm sticking with it, bro. Loyalty.
I can understand that, and I can appreciate that, man, 100%.
Hey, I just want to say,
just like you, Savage, just like you, loyalty.
There you go.
That's exactly it.
Just want to say thank you, Gilbert, for taking a chance and jumping on here with us and shooting the shit here on the cage. And it's been a pleasure. We wish you the best moving forward. I hope that you get a title shot here in the near future. If not, you need a shot with somebody that's going to put you into title contention, because you definitely are the uncrowned champion in your division, and you proved so last Saturday night in probably one of the greatest fights I've ever seen.
Thank you for that comment. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the respect you guys give me, and I appreciate all the support over the years. And big shout out to all my team, you know, Scrap Pack, Gracie Fighter, Wooden Man, El Nino Training Center, ElNinoMMA.com, Gilbert Melendez, MMA.com, and everybody. I appreciate it all, and thank you. Oh, Tap Out, 1-800-Radiators, Kelly's Body Shop in Santa Ana, Kinder's Barbecue, Telepaki Joe's, and that's what's up.
That's what's up, man. Well, we appreciate anybody that's taking care of you. So shout out to all those sponsors, especially 1-800-Radiators and Kinder's Barbecue. I know they've been around for a minute, so props to them for showing support and love.
Yeah, it's really awesome, you know, to get a chance to speak to a guy like Gilbert Melendez, who's really put himself up there as one of the great, not just one of the greatest fighters in his weight class, but one of the greatest fighters of all time. I mean, in my book, he really was the face of Strikeforce for a very long time, holding it down over there. And he comes over to the UFC, and his first fight gets a title shot in one of the most controversial losses ever, but then turns around and puts on one of the greatest fights ever. It's a true pleasure to be able to pick the brain of a guy who just got done putting on one of the greatest shows that we've ever seen, right?
Yeah, that was it definitely was, man. Like I said, that was one of the greatest fights up there, definitely top 3 greatest fights in the UFC, I think. And but at the same time, it didn't have to be. It was because of him, and he chose to make it that way. So props to Gilbert for having the warrior spirit, even when you're up on the fighting cards, man. I don't know if you got a chance to see that Klitschko fight, but it was terrible. And I'm tired of watching Klitschko fights, and I'm glad that, you know, I would say Gilbert Melendez is, you know, would make for a proud champion. I would be proud to have him as the champion, you know, a fighter in our sport to represent it like that. You know what I'm saying? Well,
the guy's aces, you know what I mean? Outside of just fighting, you know, he's a good man. The dude trains hard. He's got a family. He's got people, you know, that he stays loyal to. He's just one of those overall dudes that you can kind of respect even outside of the cage. It's not like you just like him because he fights and he scraps hard, but he's just an overall good guy. So it's good to see a person like him perform the way he does, get possible title shots, and just still be out there and be relevant to the mixed martial arts community, because, you know, the guy's a thoroughbred, and really he deserves all the accolades that he's gaining from this fight and from his career.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to see what's next. I want to see Pettis or Thompson. I don't care. Either one, I'm excited to see it.
Personally, I know he said he wanted to fight Josh Thompson a 4th time. He'd like that. He would be excited for that, and I think it would be cool, but I'd like to see him against Pettis personally. I've seen him fight Thompson 3 times already. Pettis right now, to me, is the undisputed champion at the weight class, outside of Gilbert Melendez being the uncrowned champion. I think those two guys need to battle it out for who's the true champion. That would be entertaining.
Something I didn't get to ask him was, I heard him say that you know, it would shock the world if Thompson beat Pettis. And I wonder if he considers Pettis that good, if Pettis is like, you know, on GSP's level when Matt Serra fought him, or how big of an underdog he actually considers Thompson going into this fight. Because in my opinion, I think Gil would think that Josh has the skills to be. I know he did say that, but I don't think it would be that big of a shock to Gil if a tough guy like Thompson goes out there and beats Pettis. But at the same time, I know that Nate Diaz wants that Josh Thompson rematch bad. So if Josh Thompson loses, I think you know what happens there. And if Nate's victorious against Gray on November 30th, I think you see a potential matchup, now that I think about it, between Josh Thompson and Nate Diaz, a rematch, and then you do Pettis versus Melendez. And then if you don't even whisper the words of Melendez fighting Diaz, because it's never going to happen. So what's going to happen is, if those two are both victorious, they end up sitting at the top like the Klitschko brothers and becoming, like I like to call them, the two-headed monster of the division, and that's how it'll end.
That would be the fairy tale ending for you Northern California guys, wouldn't it? But first things first, Nate's got to get past Gray Maynard, and they got to set up a fight for Gilbert Melendez. And I do hope that if it's not going to be a title fight, it needs to be the fight that leads him right to a title fight, because he deserves another shot. He is the uncrowned champion. I feel like with as much time as we spent covering his epic bout with Diego Sanchez last weekend and speaking to Gilbert online, we really have not even had a chance to talk about the reason the card was put together, which was the ending of a trilogy between Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos. We don't have too much time, but I just want to get your thoughts real quickly on the ending of the trilogy. Is it what you thought it was going to be? What do you see happening from this point on in that division?
I don't remember if it was the second or third round, but I thought that Junior Dos Santos was flattened out, knocked out cold, and I thought maybe Cain woke him up with another punch or something, but I thought the fight should have been stopped. I agreed with Dana White. I was saying pretty much the same thing while the fight was going on, that this guy's too tough for his own good. He's out on his feet. As a matter of fact, you saw Herb Dean going to stop the fight. The only thing is that even in zombie mode, as I like to call it, which Junior Dos Santos was in at that point, he was firing these just piston-like punches, uppercuts, hooks, and he was coming close to landing some big shots. I just think it was too much. It was too much of a barrage by Cain. Later on in the rounds, I thought if Junior was going to get it done, he had to get it done in the very first opening couple minutes and catch Cain, which I thought he almost did. I tell you what, man, when the camera was coming in, when they very first had the two fighters go to the center of the cage, the camera was trying to catch up because those two sprinted towards each other once the ref said fight, and they were already hitting each other. So, and Junior landed some clean shots right off the get, but it wasn't enough to put him away like it was in the first fight. And Cain made him pay, dude. And outworked him and outgrinded him and battered him. And I wouldn't have been mad if the fight would have been stopped earlier, but.
Yeah, you're right. In the third round, you could definitely have made a case for the fight to be over. You could just something going on over there in Houston, Texas, man. They just were letting everything slide that Saturday night. But Cain Velasquez, I think, once again just did what this guy is going to be able to do, fight in and fight out, until you get a guy who can match his endurance and grappling skills. Cain Velasquez is just another type of fighter that you don't really see in this weight class. There's a lot of good guys, a lot of strong, heavy-handed dudes, and a lot of good jiu-jitsu fighters on the opposite end, but you don't really have that full package. A guy who can grind out 5 rounds, who's got heavy hands, who can grapple you against the cage or on the ground and just never tires. He's relentless. And, Cain Velasquez, to me, is the undisputed heavyweight champion at this point. As great as Junior Dos Santos is, and he always has a puncher's chance, he does not have the endurance or grappling side of it that he needs to beat a guy like Cain Velasquez. And really, Cain Velasquez, to me, it's funny, I was thinking about this for a little bit. I feel like he is what they were trying to get Brock Lesnar to be. Like, they wanted this big, strong wrestling guy who could come in there and just barrage people and win with just over-aggressiveness, which didn't pan out with Brock Lesnar. But that is truly what Cain Velasquez is. He's this strong, big wrestling guy who just comes forward the whole time, smothers you until you just suffocate, or pass out, or get knocked out. You know what I mean?
You know what's funny is Phil Baroni once told me that Cain Velasquez doesn't only zap your energy when he grapples with you, but that he like steals it, like Shang Tsung or something off Mortal Kombat. He like steals your soul while he's grappling you and just makes you feel helpless, and he feeds off that. And dude, when you see him fight, I totally understand what Phil means. And people might laugh and they're like, yeah, Phil, well, anybody zaps your energy. Even Phil will laugh at that. You know, Phil will laugh at himself. But still, I get what Phil was saying, and I've seen it. And Kane's a beast, man, and he does not let up. He's on you like white on rice. Should I say brown rice since he's Mexican?
I think that's okay. We'll allow it.
Brown on rice, I guess. And he owns, man. And if you're gonna take out Kane, you're gonna have to do it early, real early. Like otherwise, it's gonna be too little, too late. And that's what happened on Saturday night, man. But props to Kane. No one's gonna beat him.
Yeah, he's certainly at the top of that pile. He is the baddest man on the planet, as Joe Rogan would say. Well, with that being said, we're going to have to go ahead and close the curtains on today's show. But what a fantastic show it was. We had a chance to cover a lot of interesting things. Pretty much UFC 166 being the talk of the town. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the Ultimate Fighter in Brazil that's going to be coming up next season, where you have Vanderlei Silva coaching against Chael Sonnen. That's a whole segment within itself. But we'll go ahead and hold on to that one until next week. Before I let you go, Lazy, do you want to give a shout out? Do you want to plug some things for us?
Yeah, I want to say, Jenna Jameson, if you're listening, you need to get help immediately. And if friends of Jenna Jameson are listening, you need to get that chick help immediately. This is going to end poorly, and we do not want to see that happen. There are kids involved. Please, someone help this woman. She's on a downward spiral. That's all I want to say. Hopefully someone gets her that message.
Thank you very much. That's my buddy LayzieTheSavage. If you want to get in contact with him or find him, he is out there in the Twitter sphere at LayzieTheSavage. That is him. You can also find him on MiddleEasy.com. He also does work with Fight Hub TV. He's really just a jack of all trades out there in the mixed martial arts community. So go ahead and follow him all over the place. He's on YouTube as well. He's on Facebook. Just LayzieTheSavage. That's my boy. I also want to give a special shout out to Gilbert Melendez and thank him for coming onto the show today. Definitely one of our best guests to have on, the best time to have him on, you know, after this tremendous fight that he put on, really the fight of the year, possibly the fight of the century. You know, just thank you again to Gilbert Melendez. I wish him nothing but the best and good luck to him in his future in the UFC. And if you want to get in contact with me, I'm on Twitter at The Real Joe Sumo. That is at The Real Joe Sumo. Go ahead and follow me. I talk mixed martial arts throughout the week. I usually shoot the shit with whoever wants to. And this is my show. This is The Cage. We'll be back next Tuesday, same time. We're going to talk more mixed martial arts, whatever's going on. Thank you for listening, folks.